All right, I'll cover part of your bullshit just because I want people to know what a joke you are. It's so fucking ridiculous that Carlos, you have been pushing movement for the People's Party. Why the hell do you get involved in this shit? You are a Dem exiter. Why are you doing this? All right, let's go. Let's go.
All right. Good. We are live. Good evening, everybody, wherever you may be watching us from. We are here on a very different date. You are used of watching us on Sunday evenings. We are Stand Up Fight Back, where we discuss strategy and analysis.
Why are your captions are not matching your words at all? Like you actually like wrote something up to run along the bottom of the screen. Is that what you did, dude? I can't even. I don't know why you do this. Like, if you want people to be Dem exiters, if you want them to go to a third party, then why do you keep getting involved in party elections? Why are you doing this? Like, what is your purpose here other than you just are power fucking hungry?
Is for the progressive movement. We have a very special guest today with us, but before we introduce her, I'd like to introduce our co-host, which is Jackie Hernandez. Want to greet the audience, Jackie?
Yes. Hi, everybody. So excited to see you guys again here. This is a really special time to talk about ADEMs and something we never really sometimes find out about till later. So I'm really happy to be here and education going on. Let's get this going.
Okay.
Right. Thank you for tuning in. Again, we are in a very unusual time.
If she was serious about this at all, she would not be doing an interview with Carlos Marroquin. Dude is not a Democrat. He only shows up to stalk the party. Dude is a hilarious stalker. He stalks our calendars. He stalks our events. He wants to be in charge of everything. He wants to take credit for everything. He even took credit for the buses going out to Nevada, despite the fact that the campaign actually organized that.
That we are broadcasting today, but we usually come on Sundays evenings. But because it's Christmas, Sunday actually falls on Sunday. We are moving this broadcast just a few days ahead, and we thought that this was very important for us to be able to invite our guests because we are discussing today the upcoming ADEM elections. Very important time.
ADEM elections. That's what you said, Carlos. The ADEM elections. You have no fucking clue what you're talking about, but you try and present yourself as an authority on every goddamn subject.
And we're going to learn a little bit about why this is so important for all of us. But wherever you may be watching us, I know it's very cold out there. People are, going through and about their.
It's very cold out there. We have 80-degree weather predicted for Southern California for Christmas, and it was quite warm today, actually. It's been cold earlier in the week, sure. It's been cold. It was a little cold earlier in the week, but we literally have 80-degree weather predicted for Christmas. Give me a break.
Getting ready for their holidays, shopping, what have you. But we also think about those people that are less fortunate. We're thinking about the unhoused community. Actually, I just came from Hollywood right now, and I saw a lot of those tents out there on Hollywood Boulevard. It's heartbreaking because these are the very things that we are concerned about, that you are concerned about. We understand that, and hopefully with the new political figures that we have here in Southern California, there may be a change coming pretty soon. That's what we are hoping. That's what we are encouraging to happen.
What change? What change? You knocking on doors, Carlos? You knocking on doors out there? What change?
That's what we are supporting for, making sure that these issues that have plagued our city are properly addressed and that people get the help that they need. But today our guest is Celine Bentancourt. She is passionate about reproductive justice and health equity. She is a graduate student at UCLA studying health and labor policy. She is a former policy fellow and organizer with NARA, Pro-Choice California. She was previously an ADEM delegate and is running this year in 80.
I don't know if I can get through this. You keep calling it ADEM, which is so bizarre to me. You have no idea what you're talking about, and yet you try to present yourself as an authority every single time. And you're a credit thief too. You take credit for other people's actions, and you stalk our calendars and try and figure out like which politicians we're trying to follow and elevate. It's so frustrating to watch your bullshit. But you came up again. Somebody tried to drop this video in one of my groups, and I had to reject it.
54 on the People's Slates. So we are definitely
Slates.
welcome you tonight, Celine.
Thank
The People's Slates. That means he's doing Karen Bernal's bidding.
you. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for taking our invitation. I think you were one of the best people to come on here to really talk about this. So I'm really happy you're here with us to help educate everybody here about what ADEMs are.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit about...
Educate. Dude can't even say it properly. It's Assembly District Election Meetings, ADEMs. And he's calling it ADEMs. What do you mean he's educating us? He's not educating us. Why do you keep putting forward this guy who is misinforming the public?
I understand you're running for AD 54. Where is that at? Tell
Yeah. So so because of redistricting, we have a bunch of new districts, but the ADEM elections go by assembly district. So I'm in Assembly District 54, which runs from Koreatown through Westlake to like North Downtown to Chinatown, part of Boyle Heights, and then all the way to Montebello and actually down to Vernon. So it's a pretty large area. We have great folks on our slate that are from all over the district, and I'm in Koreatown.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So yeah, actually we've done a lot of work. That is Miguel Santiago's.
It is, yeah.
Correct. Yeah, good. Wow, pretty well. Welcome.
You've done a lot of work, huh? You've done a lot of work in that area. That's where I got bit by a mastiff, by the way. That's why I'm permanently crippled. It was on the east side of Atwater Village, right in the area she's talking about.
And I'm very excited about hearing a little bit about what all this means, because there's a lot of people that don't know the importance of delegates and their role that they play in today's politics. Really, really important. And that's what we're going to be learning tonight.
Okay.
Jackie, you have some questions for our guest.
Yes, I think like when I barely found out about it, I was like, what do you mean that we vote for delegates? Because from my understanding, they were kind of assigned before, or they are assigned. I saw a post about that actually on your page where you were educating the public with some posts. Can you tell us about that? Like, how does it work? Because I saw some stuff about 1/3 of candidates, total delegates are, can you explain the whole process?
Yeah.
You know that better, so I'd rather hear from you.
Let me see if I
It's
can
very
process.
confusing, and a lot of people don't know, which is the big challenge of these elections, is to also educate people at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh,
So the
drawing
California
on it,
Democratic
yeah.
Party, it's like, how do you make decisions? Well, there's actually delegates in the party that make these decisions. A third are elected officials, and they get to appoint a bunch of delegates. The other third are county officials and folks that get elected through like these different DEM county clubs, and they're appointed delegates. And then a third comes from community members who decide to run, and they get support from, and that makes up like almost like over 3,000 delegates. And we all make decisions. We vote on party leadership, but the biggest thing that we do is we are in charge of endorsements and vote on endorsements. I think that's the key role of a delegate, is voting on endorsements and ballot positions for elections.
That is very important.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they pretty much setting the agenda for the Democratic Party and some of the areas that they need to be focusing on for the particular year, right?
Exactly. And the key thing too, right, is you have the Democratic Party endorsement, or if this position is being supported by the Democratic Party, you also get the Democratic Party money. And so I think that's a big thing to think about when you're thinking about, why isn't this supported by the Democrats, or why isn't this candidate endorsed by the Democrats? You also think, well, okay, they're not getting that money either, and then there's the advantages that come or disadvantages that come.
Right. You have also like with the support of the party, you have more canvassers, you have more funds to put out mail, everything that really gets a candidate noticeable for people to vote for. So, we're talking about the delegates and how. So, can you explain more on what is an ADEM? Like, what does this stand for? Because I know ADEM, it's an acronym, right? So, yeah, can you give us, like, what does that mean? And what is the responsibility of delegates, in this case, the elected ones? And what is that about?
Exactly. Yeah. So ADEM stand for Assembly District Election Meetings, because years ago, it used to just be a meeting, and Democrats in the area show up and they vote to have 14 people represent them. You have 7 folks that identify as female, and then 7 folks that don't identify as female. Because of COVID in 2019, it switched to all mail-in ballots.
There we go. I found it. It took me a while. Sorry. I was having some issues there. One of my contacts has dropped a comment, and I want to read it because these clowns clearly don't know what they're talking about. And I'm trying to get to the comment. Right? That okay, so here it is, right? This is the comment. So let's go through this. I've met Donald before at one of the conventions. Forget political parties, follow a political strategy. One does not support or join and become a member of any political party by registering with the state in order to vote for progressives running on the Democratic Party ballot line in local, state, and national offices. Bernie-crats are not Democrats, but are a surrogate third party working within the Democratic Party. Our mission is driving out the influence of artificial entities such as corporations, nonprofits, and unions. I agree with that portion, but I disagree with you about like party affiliation. I think that it's pretty clear that we have chosen the organizing body that we find to be most effective. And we know that the numbers are not in favor to try and go third party because we would lose and the GOP would get all the seats. Foreign countries and large super PAC donors with the tactical use of Democratic Party ballot line to replace neoliberal Democrats one at a time. Well, I mean, ultimately that's going to happen just because a lot of these people are so old that they're not going to live forever. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So a lot of the third wave Democrats are actually going to die off pretty soon because they started their bullshit in the 90s and now we're in the 20s. I mean, they're not going to live forever. So ultimately we will get the representation we want, but the biggest battle right now is having influence over the youth. And what they do to rise up and represent. Because if they're getting cultivated by the third wave Democrats, that's going to be a problem for us, right? Bernie-crats are separate from the Democratic Party and not responsible for their actions, nor do we answer for them. That's not entirely true, Donald. A lot of these motherfuckers do have positions in the party and do have representation and do sit in the standing committees. That's not entirely true. We can't totally step away and say, nope, we had nothing to do with this. Because we do have seats at the table and we do negotiate. That's not entirely true. It's all about the primary election where candidates are chosen to run in the general election. That is more important. Yeah, I mean, we can do our best work in the primaries. Once we go into the general or the midterms, we do kind of have to fall in line because otherwise we're going to have GOP representatives. Independent and third-party candidates do not have primaries in many states, and in others are too few in number to affect the outcome of an election. Vote as you wish no. That's wrong. Vote as you wish in the primary election, not the general election, the primary election. That's when you're trying to decide who moves forward. And also vote for policy that gets rid of jungle primaries and open elections. Every party should nominate their own candidates to move forward so that we have more choices on the ballot. Vote where it will be the most effective in electing candidates that take no super PAC money and will enact progressive legislation. You know what? The thing is, we can only prevent our candidates from taking super PAC money when the entire process is outlawed. Because if you're going to give this huge advantage to GOP candidates where they can take super PAC money, but our people can't, you got to get rid of all of it. You got to get rid of all of it for everybody, not just for our people. It has to go away for everybody. The Democratic Party is weakest in red states and in red counties in blue states. Focus on these areas where the Democratic Party is the easiest to take over and change our world. Donald, I live in Orange County. It's not that easy. It's not that fucking easy. We've been trying, okay? Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed individuals, and it's, you know what, it's even more difficult when we have people like Carlos Marroquin right up the fucking street from us. He's right up in LA County doing this kind of bullshit. He doesn't know what he's talking about, and you're sharing his shit. Adams. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed individuals can change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has. How to take over your local Democratic Party step by step. Okay, so there's a link to something. You know what? That's probably more effective in smaller places. Like when you get into highly populated counties like Orange County or LA County, it's not going to be as easy as you think. It's not. Because we have dickheads like Carlos Marroquin out there who are not even interested in Dem entering, but want to act like the authority of the information. Not helpful to us. Adams. God damn it, dude. Strategy for the left. Megan Day, staff writer at Jacobin. Is it pronounced Jacobin or Jacobin? Magazine. And member of the Democratic Socialists of America, DSA, talks about the future of the left and the importance of continuing to push progressive ideals in Congress. Megan advocates for the Bernie Kratz strategy of the tactical use of the Democratic Party ballot line as the best strategy at this time. I'm telling you, it's not helpful for us when the actual Dem exiters are trying to take control of the conversation about how we get our party representation. Let us not argue about what political and economic... Dude, this entire video is about assembly district election meetings. So why are you even presenting this as a conversation about third parties? It is about getting party representation. Why is this even coming up for conversation? We are specifically talking about assembly district election meetings. Delegates to the California Democratic State Party. Why are you delving into third party discussion at this point? I don't understand you folks. I really don't understand like how you think you have some sort of strategy behind this, and your strategy is like, oh yeah, maybe I'll participate in the party and maybe I won't. Maybe instead I'll tell people to leave the party and try something else. What is wrong with you guys? Let us not argue about what political and economic system we each envision in some far distant future. Perfect world before we solve a problem staring us in the face today. Let us work in common cause on today's problems and argue about the far distant future tomorrow. I don't know, Donald, I don't even know where you're going with this, unless maybe you are referring to something that he comes up with in further along in this broadcast, because I would not at all be surprised if Carlos starts going into a third-party tirade. Let's see what happens. It's 2 hours long. I'm not going to cover 2 hours. No, it's an hour long. It's an hour long. I'm not going to cover the whole hour, though. Let's be real.
And that then it was all done online and virtual. And now this year it's hybrid of in-person election and mail-in ballot. So folks will run, and then the top 14 of each are chosen, and they go on to be a delegate for 2 years. And during this time, there'll be 2 conventions. There's an annual Democratic Party convention where a lot of endorsements happen, or elections of party leadership. So who's the chair of the...
2 per year. 2 per year. They have a delegate convention and they have an e-board convention every fucking year. At least 2 per year. One of the years they had 3. You get 14 representatives per assembly district district. It's going to be 5 self-identifying females. 7 in Orange County. This is Orange County. Orange County. It's different per county. Okay? It's different per county. They get more up in LA. You get 7 self-identifying females and 7 non-self-identifying females. This is the way that they became more inclusive to include people on the gender spectrum, right? One of those 14, this is for Orange County. It's a different number per county. I think they get 8 per district in LA. I'm fairly certain they get more. Because it depends on the density of the population and how many Democrats are actually registered in these areas. Per assembly district, you get 1 e-board member. This is one leg of the stool. This is the grassroots leg of the stool.
Party, who are the vice chairs, who's the secretary, etc. All the time, also resolutions will come about that delegates write and submit, and then people vote, and that's a resolution adopted by the party. Same thing with legislative positions. But the real big thing happens with the endorsements. Oh, and
but
sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Oh.
No, you're good. So we have it on the screen, but
okay.
Tell us. Who is the people that elects you?
So the thing about assembly district elections is that if you're a Democrat, you do not automatically get a ballot, or you're not automatically registered. You have to register for this special election. So when I ran in 2019, 2020 for that election, reaching out to a lot of folks who had no idea as a Democrat they get to vote in these elections because nobody ever told them and the party never reached out.
Yeah.
The same way that you do for like a congressional election, because this is like a club election.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of folks are really disappointed that no one ever reached out to say, hey, you have a role in this too. You can actually decide as a Democrat where you want the party to go. So it's getting folks to register, again, is difficult. The deadline to register for this election to get a mail-in ballot is the 31st of December.
Okay.
And it only opened like over a week ago. So it's right in the middle of the holidays. It's not a lot of time to get folks to register. But we are doing our best right now to reach out to everybody in our network and all the Democrats we know, and helping them tell Democrats they know.
So this is pretty difficult, especially if you are from the community and you care about your community. But the kind of limitations, restrictions, if you will, purposely done, I think, limits the people to be able to get their voice out there. Unless you have a great network already working for you, you're pretty much working, from behind. You're already, behind schedule, so to speak, because they control the powers that be.
That's nonsense. Adams. Come on, Carlos. That's nonsense. Karen's been working on this for at least a half a year. People plan for this a long time in advance. Just because those are the timelines for actually like becoming a candidate, registering to vote, does not mean that there isn't like 6 months of planning in advance of these elections. I've personally participated in this, and you attended a meeting with me.
Control already, what's happening. They have the times, the dates. If you're not on top of it, you're pretty much behind.
Oh, exactly. There was so in those terrible Federation of Labor tapes, there's actually a tape where Herrera was discussing the ADEM elections and how they needed to call Rusty, who is the chair of the party, to make sure that it has the policies in favor that's going to support more establishment candidates and beat out the DSA progressives, as they called us. So it is really intentional in a lot of ways how they design these elections.
Here's the hilarious thing, is that Rusty is a labor leader, right? And so he also is probably pretty tight with Ron Herrera, who got caught on that tape. And it's more than likely, I think I can make a safe assumption that Karen Bernal's network had something to do with actually recording that particular conversation illegally and releasing it to the press. The thing is, for the last few years, several years, this group has been anti-labor. They claim themselves to be progressive, but they're anti-labor. And that's because there are certain labor aspects. There's certain labor unions, certain aspects of labor that are very establishment. They support things that are not great for the environment because it'll produce jobs. Union jobs, right? Like Poseidon. They support PACs to do their union canvassing operations that are not union jobs and that put us at risk. There are downsides to it. But in the most part, labor has been very good for the working class. And this particular group of people has been anti-labor for fucking years. And they're claiming themselves to be progressives when Bernie did his most effective organizing by getting together with people who were either organizing labor unions or who were already organized labor unions, such as like the Disney employees. His most effective organizing has been through leveraging labor unions, because there are progressive labor unions and there are more there are some that are just more concerned about producing jobs and not what it might actually do to the environment. So there's all kinds of dynamics there. But the fact that this particular group of people not only want to own the title of progressive, they're not even following Bernie's strategy of entering the party, other than they want to take control of the conversation around it. But that dude is not a Democrat. He's not. And he was pushing forward the movement for the People's Party.
Where it does make participation difficult. This time around, you have to have an email address to register, and you have to verify that email. You can't register with the same email 5 times. You can't register on the same IP address more than 5 times.
Wow.
It makes it very difficult to just help people register on your own computer. But you can only do that 5 times, which I just found out today. And I was like, how do they expect participation when it makes it so hard to even just...
How many fucking times do you need to register? You get 1 fucking vote. How many times do you need to register? Oh my God, even. Okay, so let's say you have a household that has more than 5 people. Are you telling me you don't have any smartphones that connect to cell towers? This is, I mean, oh my God, whiners, come on.
Register to be involved in it.
I don't think they expect participation. I think that is the issue, right? And, given that we have talked about all of this, what are the qualifications not only to be an ADEM, but also to register to vote for ADEM? So can you talk about those 2 things, given that, there's so much restrictions going on?
Mm-hmm.
So give us a little bit more detail, like, are people still on time to register to vote, or how does that work?
Yeah, so to register to be a candidate to run, that was closed on December 9th. And to be eligible, you just had to be a registered Democrat in the district that you're running in. There's no other qualifications. You had to be a registered Democrat before.
Registered by the last election. You can't just like change your registration right before you run. That's an important thing. You have to have voted in the last election as a Democrat. And that's really not a huge qualification to actually run.
For this recent election. And then to register to vote, actually, it's this year's the first year that folks who are undocumented can actually vote, as long as they attest that they would register as Democrats if they were eligible to vote in this country. And the deadline to register to vote, to get a mail-in ballot, you just go online. It's the 31st to request a ballot. You can also vote in person. You still have to register to vote in person as well, and that closes the 22nd of January. So more time in person, but when we have an in-person part of the election, it's only one day at one community center in the district that everybody has to go to that day to vote in person.
No, you're wrong. The information session I went to said that you can vote at any vote center within your county. It doesn't have to be the one location within your district. You can go to any, it's just like what they're doing with the vote centers for like regular elections. You can go to any vote center. That's what they told us during our information center session, was that you can vote at any vote center. And yeah, you can register up to the day of the voting.
So it's much more restricted than voting by mail.
Wow. Wow.
No, it's not.
Talk
Oh my
about,
God,
having to know a lot of things in such a short period of time. And again, this is, folks, if you
Let me remind you, Carlos Marroquin sat in on an ADEM planning, at least one, I think maybe more than one, planning meeting with me in 2018 that was hosted at the Peace Center on the west side of LA. Don Ford was originally organizing these, but he chickened out because Melissa Mitchelson took over the meetings. Susie Shannon was there. Dr. Bill was there. There was people from all over Los Angeles at that planning meeting. Carlos sat in on that meeting, and he's acting like he's learning this information for the first time. That was 2018.
just turning in right now, this is how exactly people get elected to become a delegate and to be able to represent their communities and push for the issues that they care about. Because we're talking about issues like healthcare, we're talking about issues like education, et cetera, right?
Exactly. The biggest power you have as a delegate is being able to block endorsements. So what happens to the Democratic Party is if they reward, incumbents, they reward the establishment. So if you're a Democrat in the party and you're an incumbent, you're an elected incumbent, you automatically get an auto endorsement. You get to be pushed through the.
That is not the biggest thing. That's interesting, though. That's a Karen Bernal talking point, because that's what she was trying to push through the Progressive Caucus, is that you need to make sure that nobody gets endorsed. Vote against all of the endorsements. This is what I've learned over my course of volunteering since 2017, is that all of these motherfuckers are involved in endorsement rackets. California Progressive Alliance, Our Revolution, DSA, PDA, it's all fucking endorsement rackets. That's the only thing they get, is to be able to slap their logo on a candidate. That's it. That's all they got. What is the most important thing that these delegates are going to do is going to be voting for party leadership, participating in standing committees, trying to change the bylaws to make it more fair and equitable. It's not all about the endorsements. That's one fucking conference. That's not what you do all year. And if that's the only level of participation you intend to contribute, then you shouldn't run.
Process, unless unless you get the number of delegates in your district to pool your endorsement and force a vote. And that's what we did this past year. David Kim was running in CA34 against incumbent Jimmy Gomez. We were able to pull Jimmy Gomez's auto endorsement and actually force a vote among the delegates. David Kim wasn't successful in that, but we did scare them enough. And the incumbents.
You scared them enough. You scared them enough. Really. So were you around for when Arturo Carmona ran in that district in 34 in 2017 when it was a special election? And y'all hit him with a hit campaign from Marcia Mendieta 6 days before the election while he was in the lead? And the results of that was Jimmy Gomez got moved forward, right? Y'all did that for Kenneth Mejia, right?
Know how powerful these positions are, and they want their folks in these positions to be able to cement their power and cement their endorsement power, which I think is the main reason that I run, because I don't think anybody should get an automatic check mark from the party. I think you have to prove yourself and to your community again and again why you deserve this endorsement and why you deserve this support.
It's almost like the neighborhood councils, because a lot of the neighborhood councils are controlled by the establishment people. They run the people that they want to run, because they pretty much are going to rubber stamp any of their particular agenda they pushing for. They don't want people to challenge them. They don't want people to question them or to even push a different agenda that they have. So I think again, folks, this is very important. And Celine is describing to us. She's running actually as a delegate. She's describing to us some of the challenges that she personally has to have as she begins to try to run and become a delegate representing her community on AD 54.
And
well, I think it would be great if you were actually running to represent your community and not running to represent Karen Bernal. All of this contrived bullshit is not good for me. I walked the blocks in your district. I was attacked by a mastiff in your district. I trained canvassers in your district. Are you gonna knock on the doors? You gonna deal with like the physical domestic violence that you see at the doors? You're gonna deal with the fact that you're probably gonna have guns flashed at you, because like that's literally what we went through. That is what we went through. Are you running to represent your community, or are you running to represent Karen Bernal?
thing that I wanted to also ask you, since we're talking about all of this different movement between the Democrats and the establishment, and then the progressives coming in and, trying to build power for, I think, stronger agendas that actually would win the Democratic vote for a lot of people. Can you tell us, why is voting for ADEM important for the progressive movement? How would that advance the progressive agenda and the people that we want to actually vote for?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to a numbers game. How many progressive voices can we have in the party to get the number of votes we need to actually, put a formidable challenge against some of these kind of same old status quo ways of operating?
The irony of what she's going through right now, like talking about how she's going to represent, but she's going to represent for Karen. The PAC that I worked for was a union PAC, and several of the people within our leadership team are part of the Rusty Slates, and we were a progressive PAC. We were fighting for workers' rights, to raise the minimum wage, to stop development projects that would gentrify communities, and to make sure that there was affordable housing, and that vacant motels were turned into homeless shelters. But you keep telling me how fucking progressive you are.
It took the party a long time to even consider banning fossil fuel money or police money. And that came out of the movement of the progressive delegates, members of the progressive caucus in the Democratic Party, who are really pushing for stronger stances on what we want to accept and what we want to let our candidates accept. I've made a
The Progressive Caucus that is under provisional status because they had a financial scandal of using a PAC to run ADEM elections and run Central Committee elections. The Progressive Caucus that is in provisional status right now because of their financial scandal. Right? And they're, as far as I can tell, they're not meeting the requirements to become a full-fledged caucus.
pledge, and most progressive delegates have made a pledge that we're not going to support candidates that take corporate money, that take oil money, that take healthcare industry money. And I stick to that. They'll call me, these electeds ask for my vote, but I'm not going to support you if you can explain why you need that money in the first place and how that influences your vote. So it's really important that folks get involved because they don't want us to get involved. When I first heard about the delegates, I was at the Democratic Convention in Long Beach, volunteer with an organization. It was in 2019. I saw a bunch of people with these delegate name tags, and they didn't look like me. There was no millennials. There weren't any young people. And so I asked women in the bathroom who had the tag on, how do you become a delegate? Like, what is a delegate? And she told me that no one would ever want to tell me, and that you just have to look online and figure it out, but no one would want you to know how to be a delegate.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That seems like bullshit to me because I'm totally out of every group. Like, I don't have a clique. I don't have like a group of people that supports me, and I was able to figure this bullshit out. That's ridiculous to me. Plus, we have the Young Democrats of California. There are a lot of young people that get lifted up. So I feel like that is like one of the most bullshit statements you've made on this. That's some bullshit. What about Students for City Council? March for Our Lives. I know a lot of young people that are involved in the party and that are getting coached up by the establishment. So I feel like what you're saying is absolute bullshit. I can tell you, though, at one of the conventions that I went to, somebody walked up from off the street and was like, "Hey, what's going on in there?" And somebody said, "Oh, it's private. It's the California Democratic State Party convention thing." It wasn't fucking private. I mean, the floor is. You got to have a ticket to get on the floor, but you can still go to the caucuses. These things are open to the public.
Why it's important, because they don't want us there, so we have to be there.
The more they keep you in the dark, the better for them because they continue business as usual.
Right. Correct.
Yeah.
Carlos, you really need to step aside from this conversation. You're not involved in California Democratic State Party politics. You're not. You are a Dem exiter. You should not be the one hosting this conversation. It's disgusting that you are constantly trying to take over every conversation just because you're that fucking power hungry.
And this is when we talk about, I think this is part of the story when we talk about the Democrats. And, I hear a lot of folks who don't know about this being like, I don't know why the Democrats continue supporting these older folks that, don't care about the environment, that don't really care about pushing Medicare for all or all of these.
Clearly, these people have not actually gone to any of the conventions. If they think it's all old people, they have not been to the conventions. There's a lot of young people involved in the party. This is some bullshit.
There are things that we obviously care about and that we don't understand why the Democrats don't make changes to the candidates. And here you're telling us about how they keep younger people in the dark to become delegates to get those candidates that we want on those ballots and get them support. So here is part of the big story of how candidates even get to be presented to the world, to be voted on. And I feel like this is really important to know because I always wonder, like, don't they learn? Do they not?
This is a total lie. This is a total fucking lie. The reality is that the people who participate in these elections are the ones who actually took the time to look it up. And it's across the age spectrum. And right now they're just trying to create a false narrative to make it look like they're shutting out Gen Z or Gen X or whichever gen. Millennials, whatever it is, right? They're trying to make it out like Okay, so the Democratic Party is a private organization. They don't have to spend marketing dollars on doing this. And they do it mainly through word of mouth. And I certainly have my criticisms about the way they do that. But part of that is because if it was something that was voted on, like on an actual ballot, they don't have the money and resources to conduct that kind of election where they would have enough ballots and they'd have, enough conveners and everything else. And that's why they still keep it kind of low key, because it is kind of like a boys club. It's a bit of like, if you know, but anybody can find out. All you have to do is go online and Google it.
Know that candidates like Bernie are doing better than candidates like Pelosi, for example, in many senses. And now we see that there are people here trying to ensure that change doesn't happen. And here we are with you to ensure that change does happen by informing people about this. And this is the reason why I wanted to talk today and ensure that we did have this conversation before Christmas, and so people have enough time to get on the website. So can you tell us which website it is?
Yeah.
I know it's right here on my screen, but if you can tell us too any more information on the whole thing, like when we have to do this.
So just ASAP, go to ademelections.com. You can register to vote by mailing. That's the best option because it gives you the freedom and flexibility to vote at your own time and not have to be forced to go in person and pick one date in January to drive to a community center. When it comes time to vote in January, there'll be a due date for your ballot. It varies. I think the due date for all the ballots is going to be, let me look right now,
January 22nd.
The 31st of January for the ballots to be received. So we have a whole month to make sure everybody who got their ballot ends up turning in their ballot.
Get it in before then. If you're going to vote in these elections, which you should, if you have any concern for what sort of party leadership, because that's the biggest thing. It's not just the endorsement. It's not just the candidate endorsements. They're only concerned about that because they're probably, like, Karen's probably already lined up who she wants to run for chair. Right? And so she's trying to get her people in right now to vote for chair because that's how she creates jobs for herself. But the reality is that the biggest thing is voting for party leadership and the structure and process of how the party is going to operate. That's the biggest thing about it. The endorsements are usually pretty, they don't usually get all that contentious. In 2018, they did down here because we had 3 congressional seats that were hot seats, and they put too many candidates in the race, right? So, like in 45, David Min got the CDP endorsement. Katie Porter did not, but she won the primary. In 48, where I live, at the time, like it's been redistricted now, Dr. Hans Kurdstead got the endorsement, the CDP endorsement, and Harley Ruda ended up advancing through the primary. I don't think in 49, I don't think they actually endorsed in 49. I don't think it was close enough. But that's the one that Mike Levin won. And then we had that other dude up in Yorba Linda. I can't remember his name now. Point being is that it's unlikely that the actual endorsement races are going to be close unless it's a swing county. And there's only a few places in California where there are swing counties where it's like kind of close. Orange County happens to be one of these hotbeds. Like, we have them. But the main objective of the delegates is going to be voting in party leadership and making changes to the bylaws and voting for resolutions and trying to determine what are our values as a party.
And there's a great group, the Progressives Delegate Network.
Oh, here we go.
They're going to be the ones that will be posting their recommendations on folks who have pledged.
No, they won't, because that's a fucking financial scam, and that's why the caucus got dischartered. Okay? you really need to stop doing business with Karen and Norman Solomon. This is ridiculous that this is how it goes every year. It's fucking ridiculous. Those two people need to retire. And every fucking year, we have smear campaigns against the opposition, against the candidates that she's creating jobs for herself to be a consultant for these people. This is a total fucking scam. And y'all keep just participating with it.
To abide by real progressive values as a delegate. A lot of groups like DSA, LA, Stonewall Democratic Club, Streets for All, I think Sunrise May again this year too, will be putting out their folks who are going to who they are listing as progressives who are running in your districts. Because the elected officials in these areas, they're running their own slates. They may not ever say they are, but they definitely are running their own people to make sure that they have their people in these in positions that have the people's people, communities' people in these positions.
You would think that given the conditions that that the country's in, given the fact that so much hate out there, especially with Republicans and how they have pushed their agenda of hate, you would think that Democratic Party will embrace the young people and encourage them and actually, surround them with resources, you know what I mean? Because you guys, inspire, that when I see you, Celine, and I don't know you, in a way that,
Carlos, you're full of shit. You don't know what's happening. They do have the California Young Democrats. They do have young people in the party. I don't know why she's making up this bullshit right now, but it's simply not true. I know lots of young people that are involved in Democratic politics, and you do too. Give me a fucking break. You should not be doing this conversation because you are not a Democrat, you are a Dem Exeter, and you believe in the movement for the People's Party. So this is some bullshit. You're just trying to create negative messaging around the process.
I just don't know you, but I already, just by you speaking, you're inspiring me. You bring inspiration. When I see Jackie, I see all these young people that we have had in the show. I see the amount of knowledge that you guys have and the vision that you guys possess. You want a better world. Why is the Democratic Party is not embracing that? This is what blows my mind, because then we have to struggle and we have to end up, with candidates like Donald Trump.
There he goes again. The Democratic Party's not embracing this. Right, Carlos? That's what you're saying. You don't fucking attend central committees. You don't attend the clubs. You don't attend the caucuses unless there's a big convention going on. Then you show up. Then you're like the stalker to the party. You like to show up when you know everybody's going to be in the same hotel. But you are not actively participating in Democratic politics, Carlos. And yet you're throwing out accusations like that, like young people are not involved. That is simply not fucking true.
We have to end up with people that bring so much hate and barely making it, not having enough votes to bring real changes. By all means, California should be leading right now and have healthcare for all.
Yeah.
We have that already. But, we struggle because, again, we have the power struggle of the old versus.
Yeah, and with that, now let's talk about the slates, because I think that part, as Carlos is talking about how we're struggling between the old Democrat.
No. Investigate every candidate. If you're planning on voting in these ADEM elections, not ADEM elections, Carlos. If you plan on voting in the ADEM elections, investigate each candidate individually. You do not need to vote for the maximum amount of candidates. You can vote for whoever you feel confident in, based on their resume, based on what they have personally done. Vote for who you believe in. It doesn't have to be a full slate of candidates, because you could help them by being bullet voters that way. That means that you're throwing votes to specific people so that they have enough to advance. Because if you vote for a full slate, you might actually advance somebody who might not be as good as somebody else, right? But these clowns, oh my God. They are literally, everybody kept telling me for years, oh no, Carlos isn't working with Karen. Really? You guys are on this, you were pushing forward the Progressive Delegates Network. You're doing her bidding right now, and you're not even a Democrat. You don't participate in any of this stuff, and you're pushing forward a false narrative that young people are not involved in the party. That is simply not fucking true. Tell that to the California Young Democrats.
The folks that are establishment, and then you're talking about how everybody has slates, and can you tell us what a slate is? What does that mean? And how does that work? Like a little more information on how people can find information on slates.
Well, let me tell you. The original concept of what they're doing today, of slates up and down the state, from what I have been told from leaders in PDA, this was originally formed by Susie Shannon, Katrina Bergstrom, and Karen Bernal, who all had seats on the Progressive Caucus at the time that they started doing this. And it became so contentious and so horrible that Alan Minsky had to step in and try and negotiate like a peace deal with the three of them. And from what I've been told, none of them talk to each other anymore because they screwed it up so badly. So now Karen has been the one who has emerged as owning all the assets, all the social media assets around this. And that's why she's still in control.
You talked a little bit about that, but I just wanted to clear out some language that people might not know, so we're all on the same page and understanding how we vote for these people. How do we vote for you? How do we vote for everyone on here?
So slates, so they're called slates. It's not anything official by the election at all. It's how people have organized themselves to give themselves the best shot at winning. Slates are when, those 14 people come together and we're going to run as a team, and we're going to run on the same kind of ideas and values. And the expectation is that everybody who votes for me is going to vote for you.
Some of the best activists I know in Orange County have either not been asked to slate on Karen's bullshit, the Progressive Delegates Network, or they were asked and then told to sign something that they didn't want to agree to.
Everybody who votes for them is going to vote for me. The whole slate supposedly we're all going to share all the votes of everybody that we know. And then we get, other groups and organizations to support our slate. So usually what comes down to in a lot of districts, especially in Los Angeles, is you have the progressive slate and then you have the establishment slate. The establishment slate was built with the influence of the, a member or state senator or, someone in their circle who's building out a slate. And that has folks who, I don't know them personally. I'm sure they're fine people who care about their community, but they're running on a slate to be told what to do by the person the establishment that's organizing it.
Give me a goddamn break. You were going to do exactly what Karen wants you to do. She's going to have a chair candidate again. She's had Kim Ellis and Delane Easton in the past. And you are going to vote for her chair candidate because you are owned by Karen.
So that's like the real difference between an establishment and a progressive slate is that, I'm not running for political aspirations. Like, I don't care if I, have, Jimmy Gomez is upset with me because I voted against him. Like, I don't care about these relationships with elected officials. I'm here to support the progressive values that I know my friends and my neighbors and my family members care about, which is actually making a California that works for working families and supporting things like healthcare for all, which single payer is in our party platform, but we're not holding these electeds accountable to following that platform. So I think that's the main difference is that I'm willing to challenge and counter, and the progressives are willing to challenge and counter, and the folks who are running on more of establishment slates
That's some bullshit. You're going to absolutely support the Karen candidates. That's some bullshit. If you're running on Progressive Delegates Network, you are owned by Karen. You're going to vote for her people. Right? So you're going to make sure that you're part of the Progressive Caucus and that you can be a voter in that election as well. Make sure that Amr continues to be chair and that Ben Hawk and Fatima are the South vice chairs, which is ridiculous. They live only like 15 minutes away from each other. So we have no actual South representation. You're going to keep voting for her candidates. That's some bullshit that you're like, oh, well, they're owned, but I'm not. Give me a goddamn break. If you weren't owned, you'd be running independent.
Are not doing it in that way. They're working through the status quo system that's given to them so that hopefully they can maybe rise up to a next level when somebody allows them to run for something else.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
That's really important. I think part of that, when it comes to a candidate, right, in the Democratic Party, that's a delegate, you would want to ensure that that delegate is pretty much filtering the candidates to see like which ones have abided by what they said and what they believe in with all the policies, how they have voted on or how they have.
I'm not going to go another 30 minutes on this bullshit. I'm not going to do it. But I'll tell you straight up, like, that's not what you're doing. You're not vetting candidates. You're not fucking vetting candidates. Karen told everybody a year ago at the Progressive Caucus to make sure that nobody gets endorsed. She has the most ridiculous fucking plans ever for how progressives are supposed to operate within the party. As she wanted to pull the endorsement of every single candidate in the state. I covered the meeting, okay? You are stooges. That's what you are. And you were sitting there with a dude who puts forward the movement for the People's Party. You're not there to represent your communities. You're there for some popularity club. You're there to be a part of a clique. This is some bullshit.